It's a Sunday afternoon in Richmond, Indiana, and 28-year-old Niqui McCown is checking off her to-do list before her wedding day. One errand includes a trip to the neighboring town of Dayton, Ohio, to pick up some beauty supplies.
She'd mentioned that after she was going to the laundromat.
And her fiancé, Bobby Webster, is busy with his own pre-wedding prep that day.
I had a couple of buddies that were kind of slow on, getting their tuxedo sizes. So I took my friend Bill to the tuxedo place.
Bobby met the woman he was about to marry in high school.
I used to play basketball, and all the girls, we tried to impress them. And I finally got a, conversation with her and asked her out on a date.
But after high school, Bobby and Niqui broke up and went their separate ways. Niqui moved on to date a local Richmond man named Stephen Johnston. They had a daughter together named Peyton.
If I was smarter, she'd still be here and we'd still be together.
Why did you and Niqui break up?
I wasn't good to her. I wasn't at all. I cheated, I was abusive.
Did Niqui leave you?
Yes.
But Niqui never forgot about her first love, Bobby, and the feeling was mutual when the two reconnected a few years later.
We were together for about 3.5 years before I moved to California, and then I came back. We got back together the minute I got back, it seemed, from California, and it went on from there.
To a whirlwind romance ending in a proposal, and now the happy couple is just 3 weeks away from their big day.
Were you excited to get married?
Yes. Yes, she knew me inside out, and she just, even now puts a smile on my face. Having those memories of her still puts a smile on my face.
And she was all smiles on that Sunday afternoon when she stopped by her sister's house.
She did her laundry every Sunday right down the street from my house. She would have just been sitting at my house waiting for her laundry to get done. We just hung out. That's what we did.
But on this day in question, when Niqui will go missing, something happens on one of her trips back and forth from her sister's house to the laundromat, and it appears to upset Niqui.
She said they just won't leave me alone.
Niqui tells her family she's getting harassed by a couple of men at the laundromat.
And my mom said, "What's going on, Niqui? What's going on?" She said, "Well, you're an attractive girl. Things like that happen. Guys do that." She said, "Just go get your laundry and come bring it back here. You can dry it here."
Niqui tells her family she'll be back and heads over to the laundromat to grab her clothes. Meanwhile, Niqui's fiancé Bobby returns from the tuxedo shop around 4:30 that afternoon.
I started watching TV, and I got lost in that TV show, so I got kind of lost on time. It's assumed that she was over at a friend's, just, chatting away about the wedding and, doing extra shopping, too. I assumed she was out spending more money than we were agreeing to spend, I guess. She liked to shop.
But that wasn't the case.
No, sir. No.
At this point, another hour has passed. It's now 5:30 and Niqui is a no-show back at her sister's house. Bobby hasn't heard from her either, and when he tries to call Niqui, there's no response.
And as time kept ticking, I started getting a little worried.
Then, a final red flag for Niqui's loved ones when she fails to pick up her 9-year-old daughter.
Her grandmother called me and said, "Hey, would you come and get Peyton?" I'm like, "Sure, what's going on?" And they told me then.
While Stephen takes care of Peyton, Niqui's siblings and fiancé head to her parents' home to come up with a game plan.
We started making a lot of calls. We started calling a lot of hospitals. About 9 or 10 o'clock, no word, no call back.
Another concerning fact is that Niqui had left her purse and ID at the apartment she shared with her fiancé and daughter.
So now we're freaking, and at that point we went down and we got the papers to report her missing.
Michelle Miller is a detective with the Richmond Police Department, where Niqui's family first filed the missing persons report.
Through talking to family and friends, her and her fiancé, Robert Webster, had loaded the car with clothes for her to go to the laundromat.
She just goes to the laundromat and then she disappears.
Yes.
Well, not exactly.
There is surveillance footage of the convenience store that she had stopped at.
The 28-year-old Richmond, Indiana woman is missing just 3 weeks before her wedding. So she's just going about her day, about to get married, and then boom, vanishes.
Exactly.
Niqui was last seen washing her clothes, but when she never returns, her family and fiancé file a missing persons report.
You went to the police?
Yes. And they told us it was too soon, you know, because at that point, I guess you had to wait 72 hours before you could report somebody as an adult missing. And for that reason is because they are allowed to make a decision just to come and go as they want.
Michelle, any chance, any possibility that your sister just got cold feet with the wedding?
She was really excited about where her life was at the time, so there's no way that I could see her getting cold feet.
And when Monday morning rolls around and Niqui misses her shift at the correctional facility where she worked, her family is convinced Niqui didn't disappear on her own.
I started crying, and I knew something was wrong because she loved her job and Niqui didn't miss no work.
And by now, cops are concerned too and ramp up their missing persons investigation. Richmond PD searches the immediate area around the laundromat where Niqui was last seen and interview those close to the missing woman.
Trying to find out if her day was typical, if everything that had happened prior to her becoming missing was normal, and just gathering facts about her to try to find out her behavior. And in that process, then you're able to possibly develop a person of interest.
And investigators look into the incident involving those two men who were allegedly harassing Niqui at the laundromat.
There were reports that there were two men harassing Niqui while she was there?
There were reports that there were two subjects that were kind of giving her a hard time, whether it be flirting and, you know, things along that line.
But according to cops, nothing comes from that lead. Then police turned their attention to the surveillance video from the convenience store across from the laundromat. These are the last known images of Niqui a short time before she vanished. You can clearly see Niqui at the counter making a purchase and then leave the store.
Anything unusual about Niqui's movements?
No, it was a routine for her to go to the laundromat. That was absolutely normal.
While police conduct their investigation, Niqui's family organizes additional search parties made up of Niqui's friends, family, and fiance, Bobby. But during their searches, Niqui's sisters are struck by Bobby's curious appearance.
We were doing the searches, of course. You don't care about what you look like. You know, you see people out there. We were a mess. I mean, if you see some of the photographs, you'll see this, but he was always the clean person. He was always dressed up, I guess, ready for if he was on camera.
The news media was on hand covering Niqui's disappearance, and the missing woman's sisters claim Bobby was center stage conducting the interviews.
I could care less how I look, you know. If I'm looking for my sister, I'm looking for my sister.
But it wasn't just how Bobby looked that raised some eyebrows. It was also how he acted just days after his fiancée disappeared.
He tried to take the rings back, the wedding rings.
And when police find out, they begin to take a closer look at Niqui's fiancé.
Tell me about her fiance, Bobby. He certainly had some curious actions after Niqui goes missing.
Yes, he did. He started having behavior that was somewhat suspicious. He had canceled the wedding hall, got a refund for that. He had tried to return the ring to get a refund for that, had looked into her schooling, money for school to get a refund.
That's very eyebrow raising. I mean, Niqui's only gone a few days and this dude's already canceling the wedding? It's as though he knew she wasn't coming back.
Police agree and ask Bobby to take a lie detector test.
Passed?
No, it showed deception according to the polygraph examiner.
Showed deception.
Yes.
So not only do you have the erratic behavior, you have his polygraph coming back with deceit.
Correct.
At this point, despite Bobby's suspicious behavior and failed polygraph, police consider him only a person of interest and not a suspect in Niqui's disappearance.
There was no evidence.
No evidence that he had anything to do with her disappearance.
Correct. His behavior was erratic, but as in physical evidence, there's no evidence.
And even though his behavior appears to be incriminating, Bobby tells police there was a good reason why he tried to get a refund on his wedding just days after his bride-to-be vanished.
One of the excuses that he used was that he was trying to gather money for a reward.
That's right, reward money. And Bobby claims he needed the fast cash to purchase a cell phone to be in constant contact with people involved in the search. but he denies he ever tried to collect on Niqui's unspent tuition money or cancel their wedding.
Sell back the ring. It was only a deposit on the ring. It was a layaway. How I sell back a layaway? You know, canceling a wedding, we're still pretty much paying on the rec hall and everything. All I did was make some calls going, you know, something's going on. You know, we're going to be delayed. This wedding's in 3 weeks. Even if Niqui came back that moment, you know, she's been missing for days. I doubt the wedding's going to be planned, you know, right on schedule. Something's going to be delayed. I never canceled nothing.
And without any proof that Bobby is responsible for Niqui's disappearance, police move along their investigation. But Bobby says he understands why police had to take a hard look at him.
I'm sure they had to do what they had to do. They had to investigate.
Then 3.5 months after Niqui vanishes, something appears. Cops find Niqui's car. But where they found it takes everyone by complete surprise.
Well, I was completely floored.
Bride-to-be Niqui McCown vanishes at a laundromat in Richmond, Indiana. 3.5 months later, her car is discovered in the parking lot of an apartment complex in Dayton, Ohio. And while Niqui's fiance was a person of interest in her disappearance, the focus suddenly shifts.
What about now? I mean, how is Bobby still a person of interest?
No, he's not. We did develop another person of interest.
It's the father of her child, Stephen Johnston, and it's his apartment complex where her car is found.
And at that point, you're thinking, this is the big break in the case. We're going to find her.
It's news her family has been desperately waiting for.
Well, I was completely floored because I was excited that it was found, because now I'm thinking, wow, now we can find out something that's happened in here. Maybe they're going to have some kind of clue of who has taken our sister.
And when cops search the car,
What about her laundry?
Her laundry was still in the vehicle, folded in the baskets.
Folded.
Yes.
So unlikely that she was abducted from the laundromat if her items are folded in the car.
Correct.
Niqui voluntarily left the laundromat and somehow ended up in this apartment complex, or her vehicle did at least.
Yes. The seat in the vehicle was in a position that would be the place that Niqui would have the seat. At least no one else larger than her would have been driving the vehicle.
meaning that Niqui likely drove there on her own accord to perhaps see someone she knew.
The vehicle's found in an apartment complex, you said, where her ex lives.
Yes.
That must have been a major red flag. Like, oh,
Absolutely. You're going to talk to him.
Richmond police contact Niqui's ex and the father of her only child, Stephen Johnston.
they found the truck.
In the apartment complex where I was living.
Did you think to yourself, okay, now they're really going to zero in on me?
Yeah, and I was ready.
And willing.
You even took a lie detector test?
Lie detector test, gave my DNA, whatever they needed. I would have gave it to them the very next day. All they had to do was ask.
And what happened?
We talked to him. He did a polygraph, and he passed the polygraph.
He passed the polygraph. So just coincidental that he lived in the apartment complex where the vehicle was found?
I believe so.
You're probably thinking like, man, this is a big break we wanted. The evidence is pointing towards this individual. He has a connection. They have a child together. He's an ex. Maybe their relationship took a wrong turn somewhere. And then nothing.
Huge disappointment.
But while Niqui's ex, Stephen Johnston, doesn't seem to be involved in her disappearance, investigators still have her car, which they sent to the state crime lab for testing.
Did it turn out to be the big break in the case?
No. The vehicle was processed for DNA, for blood, for fingerprints, but we didn't find anything.
Or so they thought. When investigators start digging around, they discover that the car is also parked close to another apartment complex where a friend and co-worker of Niqui's lives. His name? Tommy Swint.
The person that she could have been involved with.
Turns out Tommy and Niqui both worked together at the same correctional facility in Dayton, Ohio. And there were rumors that the two may have been more than co-workers, or at least that Tommy wanted to be.
In speaking with family and friends, it was found that they believed that he had somewhat of an obsession with her.
An obsession that revealed itself during Niqui's bridal shower when Tommy gave her an unexpected present.
At her bridal shower, he gives her lingerie.
Wait, Tommy gave Niqui lingerie. What was Tommy doing at her bridal shower?
She wasn't there.
He wasn't there, he sent it.
He sent it.
It's creepy.
Very creepy.
This was before she came up missing.
And as investigators would find out, Tommy wasn't just obsessive, he was also violent.
Many people said that, and especially towards women, very violent towards women. That seemed to be the common denominator, was that it was the violent towards women.
With Niqui's fiancée Bobby and her ex Steven off cops' radar for now, investigators zero in on Tommy. But when they go talk to him,
He was not completely cooperative. There was something odd about him, never quite cooperative, wouldn't answer questions completely or would go off subject.
And investigators found that strange.
Absolutely.
Like he was hedging his answers.
Yes.
but investigators can't force Tommy to talk to them, and they have no evidence to support that he's involved in Niqui's disappearance. So for now, they consider him a person of interest and continue their investigation. Then the leads go cold, and 6 long years pass.
Not knowing is killing us.
Then, suddenly, the case heats up again when Richmond police get a tip about Tommy Swint. It appears he's no longer working at the correctional facility. He's now a cop.
What was your reaction when Tommy Swint was hired as a police officer?
Astounded. In disbelief.
And to her horror, he's working the next town over in Trotwood, Ohio.
So investigators went to the Trotwood, Ohio Police Department and sat down with the chief. We asked them, did Tommy disclose the fact that he is a major person of interest in our Niqui McCown missing person investigation? And they said he didn't.
The Trotwood Police Department gives Tommy the option to resign or be terminated. Tommy resigns, but not without a fight. He sues the city of Richmond and its police department, then holds a news conference claiming he was never told that he was a person of interest in Niqui's disappearance. The Richmond Police Department fires back, claiming investigators did tell Tommy he was a person of interest, and Tommy's lawsuit against the city and police department is dismissed. But before the case was dropped, it made big headlines, and Tommy Swint's face was on every newscast and front page in the Richmond, Indiana area.
It was all over the media.
And the story even reaches the neighboring town of Dayton, Ohio, where police receive an anonymous tip. Turns out someone recognizes Tommy Swint.
Somebody called in to give us information in regards to looking at him as a possible suspect in Tina Ivory's case.
Tommy Swint is a person of interest in the missing persons case of Niqui McCown. But when he becomes a cop without divulging that information, he resigns. Tommy sues for wrongful termination, and the lawsuit is eventually dropped. But along with the massive media coverage comes some unsolicited attention aimed squarely at the former cop.
You get an anonymous tip. Hey, look into this guy, Tommy Swint, for Tina Ivory.
That is correct.
33-year-old Tina Ivory lived in Dayton, Ohio in 1991 when she went missing.
A dead body of an individual by the name of Tina Ivory. She was actually found off the side of a road, thrown like trash in a trash pile.
Were you able to determine how she died?
Yes, strangulation and blunt trauma.
And even though police were able to build a suspect's DNA profile from blood and semen stains recovered from the blanket used to cover Tina's body, investigators were missing one key thing.
A suspect to match it to.
So the case went cold and stayed there for 16 years. Until now.
There's still the problem that you need Tommy's DNA, right?
And Dayton investigators can't force Tommy to hand over a sample, but it turns out they don't need to. He's already given his DNA to Richmond police.
And then Richmond in turn gave it to us.
I want to stop you right there. How did you get his DNA? Why is he voluntarily saying, I'll give you my DNA?
Due to the fact he was cooperating with his attorneys, he did offer to give it to them.
So Tommy's saying, all right, I'm going to cooperate with Richmond PD. I have nothing to hide. But he doesn't know behind the scenes, you're actually trying to acquire that DNA because you have this dead body and you want to see if it's a match.
That is correct. He did not know that he was under the radar for Tina's homicide.
And the results of Tommy's DNA, when compared with the sample recovered from Tina's crime scene,
Matches the blood DNA that was on the blanket, matched Tommy Swint, as well as 2 semen spots that were on the jacket of Tina Ivory that was inside the body bag that was used, actually came back to Tommy Swint.
And if DNA weren't enough, forensic teams using the latest technology pull a fingerprint from the tape that was used to bind Tina's body. Then police track down Tommy, now working as a security guard and living in Alabama. They have a warrant to obtain his fingerprints.
We got him in his vehicle while he was going to work. So he was actually in his uniform, working at a security job down in Alabama, and made contact with him. They did a traffic stop on him and brought him to the police station. Again, very cooperative, did not ask any questions. And we told him that we were looking to just get his fingerprints, and he said okay. And
Just okay.
Not surprisingly, the fingerprints are a match.
I mean, you think you got your guy?
oh yes, we definitely knew we had our guy.
And investigators let Tommy know what they have. His reaction is recorded on police surveillance.
What if I told you we had your DNA off her? Would you believe it?
No, I wouldn't believe it.
And the reason is because you killed her.
So when
That you killed her.
are you stating that I killed her?
I'm asking you, did you
Oh,
kill
no.
her? Okay,
I don't
if
even
I'm
know.
telling you that we have evidence that says that you did, what do you have to say to that?
And all due respect. And I understand what your job is. But I'm gonna have to bring this to a close.
Tommy is free to go while Dayton police pull an arrest warrant. Once the paperwork is complete, they contact the authorities in Alabama to assist in the takedown.
Did you get the sense he knew what was coming?
Yes.
Back in Richmond, Indiana, police get word that Tommy's about to be indicted by Dayton authorities for Tina Ivory's murder. It's a huge development for them, turning Tommy Swint from a person of interest to possible prime suspect in the disappearance of Niqui McCown.
Are you thinking, all right, this is our guy. We got our guy who's responsible for Niqui's disappearance?
Absolutely. And we believe that through interviewing him in connection with that homicide, that we were going to be able to obtain information to figure out, you know, where Niqui was and what had happened to her.
So this right here was the big break.
Absolutely.
Now, 3 police agencies working together in Indiana, Ohio, and Alabama are ready to move in and take down a suspected cold-blooded killer.
The indictment comes down and something happens that I'm sure nobody anticipated. Take me through it.
Well, at that point, we contacted Alabama as soon as the indictment came out to go out and arrest him and pick him up. And when they did and they approached the house, they heard a gunshot, and Tommy actually took his life.
And boom, commit suicide.
That's probably the best word, is boom.
No, I don't believe so.
Why not?
I believe that there's another person of interest that Tommy was close to that has some of the answers, if not all of them.
Are you saying this generally, or is there a person who you've zeroed in on that may have information about what happened to Niqui?
There's another person. It was a coworker of his that he had a relationship with, and I believe that person probably does know more.
That's right, Tommy had a love interest at the correctional facility where he worked at the time when Niqui went missing, and cops believe that there was pillow talk about what happened to Niqui.
You're thinking that he may have shared information with her.
I believe so.
Is she on the list to be spoken to?
Yes.
But as for Niqui's family, the weight is almost too much to bear. It's been 17 years since their beloved Niqui disappeared, and her fiance Bobby says his life will never be the same.
All I wanted out of all of this is Peyton to have a mother and me to have a wife. I hope they find out to this day, 17 years later, I'm single, no relationship, nowhere in sight, lonely as it gets still, and just trying to deal with it. All I want's answers. Mad at God because he hadn't answered me yet, you know.
Her daughter Peyton, who was 9 at the time her mother vanished, is now a 26-year-old woman with a child of her own.
Do you think you'll ever get the answers you're looking for?
I do. I think when the time's right, I think that everything happens for a reason. So I think when the time's right and when it's ready to come out, it will.
You know, I blame myself for it. Because if I had treated her mother better, her mother would still be here.
And what would Niqui's sisters like to say to the woman who cops think may hold the answers?
I know Swint told you something to clear your conscience, and you're supposed to be a Christian now. Go ahead and get right with God. Get right with us. That's my message to her.
And police have a message of their own. They don't think Tommy was just involved in Tina and Niqui's demise. They believe he took many secrets to his grave.
Or was Tommy Swint a serial killer?
Do I believe that there's a good possibility that there are other people that he has harmed? Yes, I do.
Anything else you want to add?
And I watch your show daily. And without you guys, we would not have a lot of solved crimes. Because they're awesome.
I appreciate the time you've given us and the time you've given Niqui, and the job you do in helping others, solving crimes and families like us that are hurting.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
And just like the case of Tina Ivory, an anonymous tip can be the difference needed to help police discover the whole story of Niqui's disappearance. So they're asking for your help today. If you know anything, the time to come forward is now. Call the Richmond Police Department at 1-765-983-7247